Alright, next up is Donkey Kong. This is one of Nintendo's, well, oldest series, really, I guess, with the arcade Donkey Kong. Unfortunately, the company that was behind a lot of the geniusness that went into Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong 64, Rareware, is now owned by Microsoft. So things have kind of been quiet on the Donkey Kong front. I mean, we got Jungle Beat, and Donkey Kong has been in Mario Kart Wii and Smash Bros. Brawl, obviously. But I think the sad fact is that Donkey Kong as a series is pretty much dying out. I mean, you've got Rare, who had all the creative prowess behind the Country and 64 games, and then you've got Nintendo, who has the rights to Donkey Kong. So it's kind of an unfortunate situation, and I think that applies to other Donkey Kong characters' chances of being in the next Smash Bros. Game. But I'm going to talk about him anyway, just for the sake of doing it. So I'm going to start with King K. Rool, the big baddie of the Donkey Kong games. So this guy's awesome. I mean, come on, he's a giant crocodile who boxes and wears a golden breastplate and a crown and a red cape with an eye tick and just awesomeness exuding out of every pore. But, that aside, he's been around for a long time, since the Country games, and they have not put him in anything from the original Smash Bros., which you could use the excuse that they didn't have that much room for characters and they probably weren't even considering villains. But they also left him out of Melee, just making him a trophy, and they also left him completely out of Brawl, not making him an assist trophy or anything, which I think is a shame because Smash Bros. Is already low on villains, and you've got such an awesome one from such an old franchise, in my opinion, perfect representative of Nintendo and all of that cool stuff, but they left him completely out. And I think he is probably going to be left out in the future as well. So who else could you put from a Donkey Kong game? I mean, that's pretty much it. You're kind of out of choices. As I said before, Donkey Kong isn't really coming out with any new material, so we don't really have any new upcoming and exciting characters for people to get happy about. So your options are kind of limited. I mean, you could put in someone else of the Kong family, like Chunky or Lanky or something like that. But again, I mean, Nintendo had their chance several times, and they've neglected all of these characters. And I think that when it comes right down to it, Donkey and Diddy are pretty much the guys. I mean, once you've got them, why would you really want any other Kong? They kind of just they're like Klingons. They just hang on, and yeah, I don't think any of them are prominent enough for Nintendo to bother putting in the next game. So yeah, I don't think you're going to get any more Donkey Kong characters, unfortunately. Alright, so at this point I've finished with all the kind of big franchises that yielded multiple characters. So now I'm going to get more to single characters or characters from the smaller franchises such as Earthbound and some other odd ones out that I think, while they're not part of any existing franchise, might still have a pretty good chance of getting in. So yeah. Alright, so first I'm going to start with another Sonic or Metal Gear character. So Sonic and Snake were the first two and only two third-party characters ever to be in a Smash Bros. Game. And, I mean, Snake's pretty popular. I don't think anyone likes Sonic that much. But what about chances of other characters from their series being in the game? So I'm going to start with Metal Gear. So my understanding was that the creators of Metal Gear, sorry I don't have time to look up who they are, I believe it's Konami? Anyway, no, you know what, I am going to look that up, one sec. Okay, yeah, it is Konami. Anyway, so my understanding was that when Melee was almost done production, Konami approached Nintendo and said, can you please put Snake in the game? And Nintendo said, sorry, we're kind of close to release, so we can't really do that now. And then when Brawl came out, Konami went again and said, look, can you please put Snake in the game? And Nintendo said, well, you did it earlier this time, and you had asked us from before, so alright, sure, we'll put Snake in the game. And thus Snake was in the game. But, see, that to me, that's kind of a done deal. I mean, they asked for Snake, and they got Snake. I don't really see why they would pursue it. They have a representative of their series in the game, so I don't think they would bother like pushing for more characters. I mean, if I were them, I'd kind of be happy with Snake. So while I think it's pretty probable that Snake's going to be in the next Smash Bros. As, again, a representative, kind of a goodwill character, I don't think any more characters from his series are going to make it. And that brings me to Sonic. Sonic is a different deal from Snake because Nintendo now owns Sega. So, I mean, Sonic has shown up in a couple games, mostly Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, which is a two-game series so far, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's more, which contains not only Sonic, but a lot of other rabble from the Sonic games. But does this mean that any more of them will make it into the next Super Smash Bros. Game? The only person I can really think of is Tails, or maybe Shadow, but Shadow is such an obvious clone of Sonic that I don't think they'd consider it. Tails, that's a bit different. I think his chances are, while not fabulous, they're definitely better than somebody else from Metal Gears. So I'm going to go with possible on that one. Okay, this next one is a bit of an interesting one. A Final Fantasy or Squaresoft avatar. So before you freak out, just hear me out here. Square Enix, it seems, in the last couple of years have been trying to just capitalize on everything. I mean, they've made two MMOs, well, one, and they're making another one. They're making console games for all three consoles. They're making, like, iPhone games. They're making everything they can. And I think that they might approach Nintendo with an offer when the next Smash Bros. Is rolling around. And this is my idea. I mean, I don't think Nintendo fans would be too happy about Cloud Strife being in the next Smash Bros. Game. I mean, that's just my opinion. But one thing I can see happening is a more ambiguous character. Like in Dissidia, you had Light Warrior from Final Fantasy 1. And this reminds me of a game a long time ago that came out, which was Mario Hoops 3-on-3 for the DS. And there were Final Fantasy characters in that, but they weren't specific characters. They were characters like Black Mage, stuff like that. So is it possible for us to be seeing like Black Mage or Red Mage or Thief making it into the next Smash Bros? I don't know. I think this one basically comes down to whether or not Square approaches Nintendo with the idea, because I don't think Nintendo would consider it otherwise. So yeah, it's hard to say, but I think it's possible. And, I mean, I really want to play as a Black Mage. Like, come on. They're Black Mages. They're sick. And that brings me to another unorthodox addition. And that is some random character from somewhere in Nintendo's past. And if you want an example of what I mean by that, just look at Game & Watch and Rob. I mean, these are characters. Rob wasn't even a character in a game. He was a physical object. Game & Watch was a character in a game, but, I mean, why did Nintendo put these characters in? Well, I think it's because Nintendo considers them historically important and just basically wants to kind of surprise people and throw in something that represents Nintendo's history, kind of. I mean, Rob showed up in Mario Kart DS and in Smash Bros. Obviously. Game & Watch was in both Melee and Brawl. They didn't kick him out of Brawl, unlike what many people apparently wanted. So what I'm thinking is, like, maybe you could play as a Mii in the next Smash Bros. Or whatever your avatar character is for the next Nintendo console. I mean, I think it's a possibility. You could play as a Mii in Mario Kart Wii, and they even went to the trouble of making your Mii's size on the Mii page affect what size kart you drove. And they gave it two different costumes, which no other character has. So I think it is a possibility. I mean, Nintendo put in PictoChat as a course, and they are always doing self-reference in a lot of their games. So I think this might be kind of likely.